Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. Hey, today we have the pleasure of talking with another archer about his fantastic journey, and I can see kind of his background. He's got a lot of mounts on the wall, so I bet he's got some exciting stories to tell us. Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101, and we have a special guest on the line here. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little something about yourself.
All right. Well, my name's Cully Reding, AKA I just started a project that we're calling the Bow Hunting Butcher. And you know, one of the things that I like to say is I get to love my family by choice. I get to work in a passion that God gave me, which is cutting meat and wild game butchery, and I get to bow hunt by the grace of God. So that's kind of me. You know, I love to cut meat. I love to bow hunt, and just have a good time with it. And I'm about to retire from my everyday job and just go into the bow hunting butcher full time. I got about 3 more years, so I got to build up a little bit of a clientele and get things going. So
yeah, it's build up a little clientele, you know, because it's nice if you have somebody that knows how to butcher the deer or whatever other animal you have. And you know, I always like to do it myself because then I know exactly what I have for cuts. But it took me a while to figure out how to do it, you know, kind of the shortcuts and you know, that's
Right.
always nice when you get somebody that you trust, that you get your meat back. And I've taken to some of the processing places, and you're not even sure you're getting your own meat back because they just bring you out a bag of meat.
Absolutely.
And they're just, you know, I go in there and during rifle season, you see the deer hanging up in there, and some of the meat's green, and you know, who knows what it's like. And you know, are they cutting that green stuff out? Are they throwing it away? And are they mixing it in with everything else? And yeah, I just take it somebody you can trust.
One of my main goals is I actually want to go live at times, and I want to actually teach the process of processing deer, from start to finish. Everything from shooting them to gutting them, skinning them, and how to break down a carcass 100%. And then I also want to share some recipes with folks on how to cook it. You know, I want to focus on center of the plate and try to incorporate some different things that make venison the best meat that you could possibly put on the center of the plate. Yeah. And you know, one of the things that I see wrong with the hunting industry right now is it costs a lot of money to hunt. And you know, whenever you have to take a deer to get it processed, and you're looking at anywhere from $200 to $600 to have a deer processed, and you can do it at home for $20, you know, that makes a big difference. And that could get more people into the woods, more bows in people's hands, and keep our sport going a little bit longer than maybe it will if we don't do anything.
Yeah, your audio is breaking up a little bit. I don't know what's going on with it. Maybe you can see if you can. It's almost like it's not picking you up real well.
It may be my location here. Tell you what, let me walk outside and see what we can get going. Usually I have a little bit better reception outside.
Oh yeah, if you don't have good reception, the audio seems to kind of go, and the video will start, you know, going in and out. And
is that any better there?
Yeah, not sure. The video's a little better.
Still not any better.
It sounds like yeah, we'll try. But anyway, yeah, that's you know, fixing meat, you know, it took us a while to figure out, you know, how to cook it, and you know, what ways to cook it that was actually good. And you know, you don't cook it like a regular steak because it's going to be tough and nasty, and you know, you don't want all that fat in there. That's one thing
sure.
you want to do, you know, get that fat out of there. I can tell the difference between ground that comes from a butcher and my ground. The ground from the butcher stinks and smells when you cook it. Mine doesn't, because I
Right.
cut all the fat off. I cut all the tendons, the tendons, all the membranes is all out of there. So it's, pretty much pure meat. And, there's a whole lot difference. And, people say, venison is gamey. Well, if you try and eat the fat, it's going to be.
Right. Right. And that's one of the things I want to show people is venison doesn't have to be gamey. It doesn't have to have that wild taste. And it basically all begins from after the shot. You want to get them clean, and you want to get them cold as quick as you possibly can.
Right.
And then if you do that and take your time actually processing your meat, you will have a much better eating experience. So, that's part of my total mission is to teach people how to do this so they don't have to take it to a butcher. And like you were saying earlier, you never know what you're going to get back from some of the shops. One of the things that I'm going to do in my shop is I'm actually going to make videos of each individual deer while I cut it from start to finish, and share that with the customers as they come in. So that way they know 100% they're getting their animal back.
Yeah. And now that is a good teaching tool.
Right.
That's, here's how to do it. And I've seen people take, when they get ready to gut the deer, they take that knife, they just jam it into the belly and just start slicing up and down. And it's like, okay, you got gut piles all over. And it's like, no.
It's all over the meat and everything else, for sure. For sure.
Oh yeah. We get, my brother started doing this like them. He takes and flays the skin back with a flay knife. He takes a flay knife as well as
Mhm.
a hunting knife. And you go in there, you just cut through the skin and start cutting it all the way back. And now before you even break into the membrane, and
Right.
then just barely go in and just slice the membrane so you don't cut anything in there. It's bad enough when you stick an arrow through it and cutting the
Yeah.
stuff. Last thing to do is nick the bladder and have the bladder all over. So now you peed all over your mouth, or you're all
Right.
over your meat. And
Right.
now then the best cut of the meat is right there where you're going to contaminate it.
Yes.
And one of the tricks that we kind of come by accident one time is, the deer was kind of all covered with gunk. So we got back to guys hunting with house, and we just hosed it down to get all the gunk off the deer. And that hide peeled off so nice. We're like,
Yes.
whoa, okay. So we
And
started hosing them down after that.
right. And it actually helps to keep hair off the meat, because the hair, once it becomes wet, it sticks to the hide a little bit better than it does
Yeah.
dry. And you cut through dry hair, it falls all over the place. When you cut through wet hair, it kind of sticks to where it's supposed to stick.
Yeah. And that too, when you get ready to cut the hide off, you want to go in and just poke the hole and go underneath the hide. The zippers are nice because they cut from underneath, and
Right.
cutting all those hairs and little tricks that you learn after years of, okay, I got hair all over this meat. How am I going to get all this off? And so then you figure out a little bit better how to do it.
Right.
I debone everything, separate the muscle groups out, pull as much tendon off as I can. And I've gotten some of the mixes and made different recipes and stuff. I made pepperoni sticks one time, and I didn't put them in the skins. I just had the shooter, just stuck them out on a plastic paper and then stuck them in the freezer and froze them. And then
Right.
from there I could stick them in a deep freeze and they're froze. And they're not all sticking together as long as you don't put it in a regular refrigerator freezer. You'll be all right.
For sure. So let's talk a little archery.
Yeah, yeah. It's how did you get started in archery?
Well, I was a little late in life getting started. I didn't start until I was 16 years old. Um, it was kind of a funny story. My dad and we were in town, and my dad always worked on leather. And
Yeah.
we went to a man's leather shop, and he just happened to be a bow dealer. And my uncle, who is probably the best bow hunter that I know, was always a bow hunter, and I wanted to get into it. And we were in there, and I was looking at the bows, and my birthday was coming up, and my dad said, "You want one of those?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "If you can take that bow and hit a bullseye your very first shot, I'll buy you a bow for your birthday." I had no idea what I was doing. And this was over, but I'm gonna give it a try. And the guy fixed it up for me, and I drew, and he kind of walked me through a few little pointers and whatnot. And I'll be dang if I didn't hit the bullseye. And he was stuck to it then. I made him buy me a bow after that.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it, man. I got into it. I had a rough go as a bow hunter starting out. I went for several years without killing a deer with a bow. I would typically shoot over their back. It took me a little while to learn that they're gonna jump the string a little bit, especially back in the '80s when bows had a pretty good twang to them, and
Yeah.
they were nowhere near as fast as what they are now. But finally, I got it done, and I fell in love with it, and I haven't touched a rifle to hunt with in over 25 years. Yeah, it's one of the best things in my life. Love it. I just absolutely love getting out there and hunting with a bow and traveling. I don't travel too much out of the state of Texas, but I do travel all over the state and hunt rams. Some of the Texas Ram Slam, according to the oh man, records of exotics. Almost forgot what I was going to say there. And then I don't know if whenever I was in the house, I shot the biggest archery kill axis deer in 2017, and shot it with a bow. That was a fantastic hunt for me. Took me 9 weeks to kill that critter, but it was worth
Dedication.
yeah, and I learned a tremendous amount on that deer, and what I ended up doing is kind of a funny story. Whenever I booked the hunt with the guy, and I told him, I said, that's the axis deer that I want, and I said, I don't know exactly when I'm going to be able to hunt. Do you have a problem with me just coming and hunting whenever I can? And he said, no, not at all. So I've moved pop-ups around all over his property, trying to get on him. And every evening when I would pull up, he was standing next to a great big water cistern that was empty. It was an empty water cistern, rock. And I asked him, I said, would you mind if I brought a rock saw out here and cut a hole in that cistern? And I'll repair it whenever I'm done. And he said, yeah, if you'll fix it whenever you're done, you can go ahead. So I went and got a rock saw, cut a hole out in this thing. I crawled in it. I had to get a ladder, crawl over top, crawl down in it. And on the third hunt inside that water cistern, he walked up, gave me a 20-yard shot, and I was able to put it on. And then the work was on. Not only did I take care of the deer and get all that done, then I had to go back and fix the water cistern and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that was a fantastic hunt. A lot of fun, a lot of work. I walked more miles probably that year than I've ever walked in my life.
Yeah, that's a lot of work to get a deer in, but you know what? It's a great story, great memory, and the meat comes and goes, but the story stays with you.
Right. That's talking about that. That's one of the biggest things. I'll be sitting in the game room at night, and my wife will ask me. I'll just kind of be gazing around at the mounts on the wall, and she'll ask me, "What are you doing?" And I can remember every detail of every hunt that I've ever harvested a deer on, and I sometimes I just sit there and relive every single hunt that I've ever been on, and every single shot, and whether they were great shots or whether they were horrible shots.
Yeah, we all remember the good ones and the bad ones.
Right. And I don't know, it's something that everybody needs to experience, I think.
Yeah, there's so many stories out there, and that's what I like about talking to all the archers from all over the world, about their adventures and the stories, and I always learn something on every episode. Somebody's always got something that I didn't remember or didn't realize, and I hope that whoever I'm talking to learns something as well. And, depends on what we get into, there's all kinds of things we get into. And, my listeners, they know we talk about all kinds of subjects. And,
Right.
it's, yeah, and that's it. There's not really a fixed format. We start archery and, we get into whatever we need to. And, the one thing that a lot of archers, they might get the deer, but what do I do once I kill it?
Right.
That's kind of the thing that, a lot of them don't know. And if you don't take care of it right, like you mentioned earlier, get it cold as quick as you can.
Right.
And, you know,
Get it cold.
get it
But
cold, get it gutted. And
yeah, for sure. And I alluded to it a little bit earlier. Archery, bow hunting and archery both can be very expensive, but it doesn't necessarily have to be,
no,
Um, and I talk to people all the time. I had a good friend of mine. His son was wanting to get into archery, and I don't know if I should give this plug or not, but he called me one day and he said, "Look," he said, I don't want to spend a ton of money." And I said, "Well, let's look for you a used bow." And he said, "Well, we're kind of impatient." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "Over at Academy, I saw that they had a bow, a youth bow, a beginner's bow, and I think it was $100. And why don't we go over there and look at it?" And we went over there. He bought the bow. The kid can shoot a bow like no one I've ever seen before that just started out. I mean, within 15 minutes, we had him driving tacks,
oh,
and he fell in love with archery. He hasn't bow hunted yet. I don't know why. Every time I try to get him to come out here and go bow hunting with me, he's a football player now, and so I'm sure his football schedule keeps him from being able to come out and bow hunt with me and all that stuff. Eventually, I'll get him out, but you know, $100 bill, and I think he spent 20 something dollars on some arrows, and we had him ready to go. And I'm not one of the big guys that has to go spend $10,000 on a deer stand. I'll take some old plywood and I'll nail it up to some trees if I need to, or brush in a blind somehow. And you can be successful if you're willing to put the amount of effort in that needs to be put
right.
in. And sometimes some guys go out and they pop up in 15 minutes and they call it done. And whenever I go to put up a blind, I got to plan a whole weekend just to put up one deer stand. And trying to get people to understand that, and understand that they don't have to spend a tremendous amount of money to go bow hunting and enjoy the things that we enjoy. That's something that I think that we as archers and we as bow hunters need to do.
Yeah, you don't need to spend a lot of money on tree stands. Ladder stand is nice and easy, but not a little more heavy, weight as far as carrying them in. But you can use the hang on, put the screw in steps or the strap on steps and get in there. And as long as you know how to safely put it up and get in and out of it, have your safety harness on, and you don't need to spend a lot of money. And my hunting bow is a 2001 PSE.
Right.
My other target bow is a 2003 PSE. And when I was working at Cabela's, I managed to get one of their return bows. I think it's probably about 6 years old now, but I had to do some work on it because it had some problems because it was returned, needed string and other things, and hadn't even put a rest on it yet. But I hunt with it's a 22-year-old bow.
Right. Right. I can tell you, I trade bows about every 10 years. Right now I'm shooting a Hoyt RX3. Went into the archery shop. I fell in love with that bow. It just felt so good in my hands. I had to get it. And then now I kick myself in the butt because I went and bought my daughter. My daughter is into bow hunting. She absolutely loves it. She's probably a better bow hunter than I am, but she wanted to upgrade her bow. So we went and got her a Hoyt Torex for half the price. And I shoot that Torex better than I shoot my $2,000 Hoyt RX3. And it's the craziest thing, and it, again, like I said, you don't have to break the bank to be able to do this. You don't have to break the bank to be able to get into this thing that all of us love. Hopefully everybody that's watching this is either interested in it or already is in love with it, and this is what drives them to go through their years.
Yeah, I know when I have my store, I would somebody come in looking to get a bow, I'd put them into the Nova bow, the PSE Nova, because I was a PSE dealer. And that one I had them set up so they had to get nothing except something to shoot at. Because I made my kits because at that time you could go to other stores, like Walmart sold them and other places sold them, the same Nova bow, but it was not put together. It was, and you got just the bow. Well, all
Right.
mine were put up and set up. And then not only that, but I give you 6 arrows with my kit. And I give you a release. And you got a sling and a stabilizer, and I got string dampeners on it. And it's all set up, plus shooting instruction. So nobody could price compare because,
Right.
yeah, you might save $40 or $50 on the bow, but you bring it in, I'm going to charge you $40 to set it up.
Yeah.
At that time, so I even had one guy decide to return it because he's asked, call me up and says, "Hey, you think I put them on?" I said, "You can mount them on. They're not going to be right. You don't
Right.
know how to set them up. I'll charge you $40 to set them up correctly. And if you want shooting instruction, that's $100 an hour. That's all included with my bow. So I'm going to take it back. I'm going to buy it for you." So the extra stuff that you give with them, and you don't have to spend on, and those were like $350 bows.
Right.
Everything. You
Right.
didn't have a case. I didn't carry cases because Walmart sold them for $5 more than I could buy them for. So I couldn't match their price, but if high ends I do. But you just need a case, and those like $20 at the time.
For
So for
sure.
under $400, of course this was 20 years ago. You got everything you needed to hunt.
Right. And
Except broadheads.
I think about that all the time. I shot a PSE. My very first bow was a PSE. I can't even remember if it was a fire or something, or a
Oh, the
storm.
Firefly?
Yes, that was
Firefly?
it. And that was my very first bow. And like I said, you shot it and almost sounded like you were playing the guitar. And I don't even know if it broke 200 feet per second, but once I started killing deer with it, it was a bow that killed deer. And
Right.
you think about it now, my dad paid, I want to say he paid $350 for that bow. Yeah, I got it for my 16th birthday. I opted a new bow over a hand-me-down truck, so I got the hand-me-down truck and a new bow. But
That's a fair trade.
right, I'd take it today still. But like I mentioned before, it was the effort that I put into it, and the effort of actually learning how to bow hunt, learning where shot placement was, where to aim, learning how to be quiet, for one thing,
Right.
because back I wouldn't even hardly dream of taking over a 15-yard shot back then. Now I don't even like to take a 20-yard shot, but or anything beyond 20 yards, I should say, not a 20-yard shot. But and hunting back then made me a better hunter today, obviously, because we
Right.
did have to right. And you know it's just a big part of who I am, and like I said, I got to hunt with my uncle, and he helped me set everything up. He helped me learn how to shoot a bow. And he well, I can tell you, this year he's got some pictures of 170-inch deer. It's going to be his first true Boone and Crockett deer that he takes with a bow this year. He's 64 years old, but he has, I'm going to say he's got 25 deer that are Pope and Young class deer, and I learned a tremendous amount from him as we were coming up. We hunted together, and he was a part of every deer that I killed, and I couldn't have done it without him. But and kind of I think back on him and the way that I was with him, and that's kind of the way that I would love to be with some of the people who are trying to get started, so that we can work together and teach them how to bow hunt, how to shoot, for one thing. A lot of people,
Right.
they grab their bow, they walk out, and they get mad whenever they can't hit the target. And there's so many things that they do wrong. You see them with a death grip on their bow hand, and they'll anchor by their eye one time, and by their ear the next time, and on their chin the third time, and they wonder why they can't hit a target. And and that's some of the things that I look forward to as I move through this bow hunting butcher, is working with people so that we can keep promoting the sport.
Right. Yeah. That, you mentioned death grip. That's one way to derail your bow when you get ready to let down, because
Right.
you've torqued it. You got that death grip on, and now you've torqued it, and you let down, and right off the cams it comes, and it's like, oh, it scares you, and or hitting your arm because you got that death grip. You're going to put that arm in the way, and there's just so many things, and those using the wrist strap. I always tell them, it's like, if I start talking to somebody that I found out they're an archer, and I ask them if they're using a release, and they say, yeah, it's like, well, I'll give you first lesson free. Quit pulling the trigger. That's your first free lesson. Quit pulling the trigger. And some look
Right.
like, it's like, what? Well, how do you? Yeah. No, I can tell you why.
Oh, you were talking about a wrist strap. Funny story. I was in an archery shop one day, and I was looking at some bows, and there was a new flagship bow that was out. And guy was trying to sell it to me, obviously, and he said, "Man, I'll set this up for you." And I didn't even think about him putting a wrist strap on a bow sling. And anyway, I drew that bow back, and I released. And whenever I released, I wasn't thinking about not having a bow sling on. I don't grip my bow at all. Usually, I don't even put my fingers around it. And that bow,
Yeah.
and it back then, this was probably 20 years ago.
Oh
And
yeah, they jumped.
so it was a big price bow, and it shot out of my hand and it bounced all the way down that lane. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to buy this bow now, no matter what. And it's still, I today I can't shoot without a bow sling on, because the bows now, they don't have quite the same recoil that they used to
Right.
have, but I don't want to take a chance on it. I couldn't imagine being 20 foot up in a tree and release my bow and it flies out of my hand, and because I don't have a bow sling on, and there goes my bow, it busts all into pieces once it hits the ground. That would be horrible.
Yeah, I'm the same way. If I don't have a sling, I was actually shooting a bow one time and didn't even think about, like you. I didn't drop it. My hands went. I felt it hit my fingers. Like, oh shit, it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to do that. It shifted. From the back of my hand to the front of my hand, and yeah, I didn't drop it. But oh man, I almost did.
It's crazy things. So you were given lessons and stuff. I'm curious to hear a little bit about your practice sessions or your workout sessions. What do you do to stay tuned? Your body, your mind, everything else.
Well, one of the things that you got is shoot, and one of the things that I found over the years, that even though you might want to shoot, I've even driven down to the range and shot my bow, shot a round of it. It's like, not working. Quit. I shot 5 or 10 arrows that whole time, and I quit. I was done, because that just wasn't feeling right. Now if I had a tournament, I'd have had to kind of, refocus and, get mental attitude going. But, when you're shooting, you go through your draw process, everything exactly the same every time. If I have a sling that I put the bottom limb in when I'm hunting, well, I use that on my rig as well. So I have that holding in there. I put my hand in there. I do the same thing with my hand every time I draw back. And when I was learning, make sure it's okay, I'd look at the level, make sure the bow's level, but I never look at it again. Now,
Right.
I have that muscle memory. I know the bow is level. Now, if I'm on a 3D course and I'm standing on the side of a hill, I'm going to glance at that level, because I, might have to lean back or lean forward or up or down, and remember that your form is your form standing perfect in a perfect position. When you need to shoot a different distance, shorter or longer, you have to bend at the waist, down or up, or twist. If you can't move your feet, like you're on a tree stand, you can only move so far. You might have to bend your waist, but that's still your form. and you still have to follow through. And like you do and I do, is don't grip your bow. It'll do
Right.
the same thing every time if you don't interfere with it. You see some people that, well, curl your fingers on the side of the bow. No, don't do that. What that does, it forces your hand to be in the correct position, but now you're putting pressure on there, because in the process on your hand, we learn a lot of this kind of technique and joint manipulation and control, in martial arts. I did that for 20 plus years. But if you curl his fingers in, what do you have to? You have to use muscles to curl his fingers in. And now if you put your hand, finger on the two meaty parts of your hand by where it meets the wrist, and you start making a fist, curling them in, that changes that muscle. Or if it's
Right.
just relaxed, it's all relaxed, nothing's changing there. And I'll go through and when I'm helping someone out, I'm just like, if you have somebody with you, hold your arm out to the side with a slight little bend like you're shooting your bow, and have them push right on that part, like your lifeline where it meets your wrist, in between the two meaty parts, between your attached to your little finger and your thumb. Push on that part. And if you push on that part, you're going to push them over. Now, put the pressure over on the side by the little finger and push. What's it do? Your wrist wants to twist. You're not going to put as much power in it. Same thing if you do it on your thumb. Same thing if you're trying to do, the one thing for a while was a high wrist, where your wrist is just locked out straight, so that there's not bent at all. And you can't be consistent with that. And it's just all those things. I go through and make sure I do the same process every time, get to my anchor point, make sure I have, depending on which release I'm using is which part of my hand anchors, but I don't care, because I have a kisser button and my nose and my peep.
Right.
So as long as it's touching my nose, I have the kisser button corner of my mouth, and I can see through the peep and see my sights. That's all lined up. Some say, well, you have to have a different anchor point for your handheld release than you do your wrist strap. No, you don't have to. What part of your hand anchors to that part of your face is going to change, because as you do it from having into the trigger release to turning your hand over, it's going to touch a different part of your face, but nothing changes on your anchor point.
Right.
I shoot both of them with back tension release. I can switch between them, no big deal. I don't think it's with the wrist strap on it. It's kind of a pain to grab my handheld, but and a lot of people call them a thumb release. There's the thumb releases with have a thumb trigger, and then there's back tension ones only through back tension by rolling your hand back,
Right.
using the back tension will fire. They call it a thumb release, but you don't use your thumb to fire it.
Right.
That's the thing. I don't know which type you use, but you'll see a lot of people, they'll use the thumb and actually pull the trigger with their thumb.
Right. Instead of rolling it back with their thumb and letting it surprise them whenever it goes off.
Yeah. Well, it's like you take index finger has a lot of dexterity. Your thumb doesn't. So now you're going to trade a finger that has dexterity to one that doesn't to try and pull the trigger.
Right.
And if you're pulling the trigger, you will at some point develop target panic.
Right.
If you're not pulling the trigger, you're not going to have target panic. That's just if you got target panic, quit pulling the trigger, because it'll stop, because you're going through that process of firing. And what happens on a target panic is you're looking at the pins. Excuse me. You're looking at the pins. You see it move across the target, and it's floating around, and you say, okay, pull the trigger. That moves up. Oh, don't shoot. And that's your target panic. It's when your mind says don't shoot, your pin's not on there, because you look at the target, ignore the pins. You put it over your target, it's going to float. Nobody's going to hold it perfectly still. I don't care if you got a 20-foot stabilizer with 15-foot counter stabilizers, you're still not holding it still, because you're not going to hold it up very long. You just can't hold the weight. So you're going to have some movement in there. Of course, those longer stabilizers do help a lot, but I'm a bow hunter, so mine is 12 inches or less. Just because I don't want that great big one, it gets in the way. So I don't have a long one.
You hit it.
Yeah, it's hard enough sometimes getting your bow around all the limbs without having another 2 foot sticking out in front of you. Anything longer than your arrow is going to be in the way. and
Right.
it's hard enough getting the arrow in there, and
Absolutely.
so when you go through your shot process, you got to make sure you're using those back muscles and come back. I've seen people using back tension release. The arrow goes off. Wait. Now the arm goes back. Okay, that's not what it's supposed to happen. It's supposed to go back, but it's not supposed to go back a few seconds later. It's supposed to be
Right.
in the process going back. Now,
Right.
my arm don't go flying back because it comes back, but it doesn't just fly back. Maybe if I shoot 90 pounds, like one guy I met when I was down at PSC at the dealer school, he was in there practicing shooting 90 pounds on one of the PSC bows, and this guy was watching him. Also, he's getting closer and closer to watch him, and all of a sudden he shot and he smacked this guy in the head. He got a little too close. And shoot, at 90 pounds, when that hand goes back, it comes back with some force.
Absolutely. They can have all that heavy weight. I don't shoot heavyweights anymore. Of course, at times everyone gets into that, and they want that fast, blazing fast arrow. I was shooting 70 pounds. My practice sessions weren't near what they should have been because I would get tired so fast.
Yeah.
And now I shoot 52 pounds all day long. 90% of my shots on animals are complete pass-throughs at 50 pounds. No issues whatsoever. And whenever I do practice, I can practice for longer periods of time, build
Right.
up that. One of my favorite drills to do, I love to shoot blind bell. You were talking about form, and I'll set my blind bell up, and I guess for anybody who doesn't know what blind bell is, I get about 4 yards off of a target that's basically set eye level. I draw, going through everything step by step, slow motion almost, close my eyes. I don't pay any attention to where I'm going to hit the target. And I go through my shot process, my follow through, and I'll do that 15, 20 times just to make sure that my body's in tune. I double check everything as I go through the entire process of the shot. And then that seems to help me quite a bit. Sometimes I'll come out and I'll do my one shot, one kill. I'll shoot my target right over there. And that's my one shot. And then I'll go through a drill session. Another drill that I like to do is I take a softball and I put it out there 20 yards and I'll draw and I'll hold for 15 to 20 seconds and try to hold my pin on that softball. Just to try to keep that float. You were talking about, your
Right.
pin floats. Try to keep it a little bit tighter. The tighter you can keep your float, the more accurate you're going to be, I think. And I don't even shoot it at that point. I hold it for 15, 20 seconds. I let it down, rest for a minute or so, and do that again 4 or 5 times, just to build up that muscle memory and that strength. And then whenever I do shoot, I seem to shoot a whole lot better groups whenever I go through that process.
Right.
Following days. If I try to go through those drills and then shoot target after that, I may miss the whole target.
Yeah, kind of a little bit worn out at that time.
Get a little tired, whenever you go through that process. But I found that really helps me and helps keep me focused while I'm doing it. That way, whenever I do have, if I got 140, 150 inch deer walks out in front of me, I don't have to think about the process of the draw of the my form or anything else, because it's ingrained in me. And
Yeah.
I can focus on the target, just like what you said earlier. I try to focus on where I want to hit more than I focus on the pin. And it's worked pretty good for me so far. I'm not bragging, but I've got, I think, 6 Pope and Young deer in there hanging on the wall. And I lose my mind whenever that deer walks out in front of me. I can't think of anything, it's kind of funny. And thank goodness I do go through those practice sessions like that and work those drills, because I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah. And there's, one of the things when I was first learning back tension release, they had us shooting blind bales and then learning the technique. And then you open your eyes and then you loosen the techniques. You close your eyes until you can finally open your eyes. There's nothing, it's just no spots on the AMAT. And,
Right.
once you get through that, and one of the things I used to do is take one of them little 1-inch orange stickers, the
Hmm.
little target centers in 1 inch, and I'd stick those right in the center of my target, and I'd aim at that orange circle at 20 yards, and I'd go back 30 yards, 40 yards, still aiming at the same circle, at, but that was when I could see them. Now my eyes are old enough. I don't think I could see that spot at that orange circle at 40 yards. So I
I understand.
can't shoot it because I can't see it no more. But that's a technique that works pretty good too, is looking at, a smaller target where you focus on, not on the whole, the single spot. You got all that blue area, you got a little white area in the middle. Well, you're aiming it at the white area, you're going to hit it most time. Well, quit aiming at the white area, take and make it a little smaller. And one of the
Right.
practice techniques that, I don't use it, but you take your target and you cut out the whole, the white part of the outsource. You just have the round circle. And then you hit that. And then you take your 5 shots, you cut off one of the outer rings, take your 5 shots, and you get smaller and smaller. So all you have is the X ring. And if you miss, you have to go back and start all over again.
Right.
So now that it just forces you to, okay, I can hit it. And one of the things I used to do with some people, I'd get them set up, and it's like, I just can't group or nothing. I'd take a 1-inch horizontal black line, I'd put on the target horizontally. It's a 1-inch black line. And I say, okay, shoot that line. I don't care where the line is you hit it. I want you to shoot that black line. And you know what? Most of the time they're going to hit that black line,
Right.
because your mind will let you float sideways. And then I'll turn it so it's vertical instead of horizontal. Well, let's shoot that line. And they're hitting that line. It's like, okay, you can hit a 1-inch wide horizontal line. You can hit a 1-inch wide vertical line. You can hit a 1-inch circle every time.
Right.
That trains them into thinking, it's like, oh yeah, I can, and then you can make a little crosshair if you want. And so, okay, shoot the center of it, and so you go from there. And, that's some of the things that, you can use for practice techniques to get you going. It's also kind of a good way to, make sure your bow is set up, because if your elevation is off, your horizontal will tell you. If your windage is off, the vertical line will tell you. One of the things that you can do, if you're canting your bow a little bit, take that spot, shoot at your 20, 30, 40, 50 yard pins. That line of arrows should go straight up.
Right.
If they don't go straight up, that means you're canting your bow, or your sight itself, the third axis is off. So it's actually cocked a little bit of an angle. Most of your bows nowadays are going to be, and unless you get a really cheap sight, the sights are going to be machined fairly well, so that the tolerances, so they're going to be straight. So you don't have to worry about that on most of your equipment. So that's something that you can do to check, see how it's doing.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I've done that a couple of times too, for the mental aspects of it. Whenever you start missing that dot that's on your target at 20 yards, and you put that tape up there, it kind of forces your brain to go back.
Right.
The simplicity, I don't want to say the simplicity of it. I really don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but it forces your brain to go back to where it should be.
Yeah, you can refocus on it.
But and there's a whole lot of mental aspects to it too, and in both aspects, archery and in bow hunting. That I'm not the best at practicing. Sometimes, you get in a hurry, life happens, and you're like, I got to go practice, and you run outside and you grab your bow and you shoot 3 arrows, and you're like, okay, I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's getting dark, so you kind of rush through some things every once in a while, and that's typically when, me personally, I have to go back to the things that I have to work on mentally
right.
to get back. And right now, right now is key time. Our season opens up here in Texas September 30th, and today's the 12th. Today's my birthday, by the way.
Oh, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. We may have to do some of this interview on the road. I'm supposed to meet my wife here in a little bit to go out and eat, but I kind of lost my train of thought there where I was at.
Well,
But
you're talking about, focusing, if you're looking at your pins, what are you going to hit? Because you're focused
yeah,
on the pins.
right,
You don't care. You don't, basically, if you're focused on the pins, you don't care where it goes, because all you care is where the pin's at. So
right,
you focus on where you want the arrow to go, focus on only where you want the arrow to go, and put the pins over it. They're going to move. You're not going to, you're let the pins kind of blur a little bit. Well, for me, that's real easy because they're always blurry for me nowadays. But
you know, I actually went and I had a lens put in my peak so that I could vote, so that I could see my pin better, and totally messed me up. Totally messed me up because I started to focus on my pin, and
right,
I went back to the shop and I told my bow guy, I said, "Hey, take that thing out of there. I'd rather have a blurry pin and be able to see, because I couldn't see my target clear
right.
because of the lens." And I said, "Take this thing out of here because this got me all screwed up." And it took me a couple of weeks to get out of that.
Yeah. Well, and it's like when it's getting kind of dusk and you have lighted pins, all you see is the pins. You can't see the target. I did that
Right,
once. It's like, okay, had a light on my pins. I turn it on, animal disappeared. All it's like, I couldn't see past the pins because they're just so
right,
bright.
right,
And now I have fiber optic pins on there. So when they start glowing, it's not, if they're not glowing, it's not hunting time. If it's not glowing,
right,
it's done. The only problem
right.
is early season, with the big canopies on the trees. Yeah, they glow later and it's not quicker. But
Yeah, yeah.
have you ever used a string to check your form?
I have not.
What you do is take a string that you can hook your release to, make a loop around so it fits around your thumb, and make a loop that's the length of your draw length, so it feels just like your bow. So now you're going to be going through the whole process of pushing and firing your bow with the back tension release. That string should jump straight off your hand to your target. If it does not, your form is off.
I will have to give that a try. That's
I
something I can do in the living room on those long days. Whenever I have to
Yeah,
work all, I don't get a chance to make it out and shoot.
if it goes any other angle than exactly where your hand is pointing, because your hand, I teach a real closed stance, and that hand should point straight to your target. So if I'm aiming at, the thermostat on the wall, when I shoot, that hand should be pointing right at that target, right at
Right,
that spot. And if I have a string, it should go straight towards that target. If it doesn't, now your force is at an angle to your bow. If it's at an angle to your bow, it's going to make your bow move one way or another. If you have an open stance, you move that front foot back a little bit. Now, when that bow goes off, you're already open. So now what's happened is, to see what's going on, is hold your arm out to the side and have somebody push you just fine. Now move it in front of you, and now try and push it forward. Now you're not strong. If you're pushing on the back of your hand, you're not very strong. So now you're
right.
using the weaker part of your muscles when it goes off. Watch somebody that does an open stance. When that bow goes off, there's a good chance that bow is going to go a little bit towards their back, because the way it
True.
goes, your force is not straight through your bow. Uh, just like when you're putting your loop on, the loop should be same distance above your nock and below your nock. If you're going to put a nock point on, you got to put one below it, because
Right,
you want that force to go straight through that. And if you take a pencil and put it on the table, take your finger and push from the razor to the tip in a straight line. That pencil goes straight. Go off
hmm,
just slightly off center. That pencil will turn right away. That's what your
right,
arrow's doing if you don't have that loop set right.
right.
And it needs to be at 90 degrees to your string.
Yes, yes. And you know, I think there are a lot of people, myself included, in the past, whenever bow season sneaks up on you, and you grab your bow and you sneak out there, and you don't take the time to take it and get it tuned. You don't take the time to get it checked. I like to shoot through paper at least 2 weeks before bow season opens. That way, if there is something wrong, I I can take it to my tech and he can fix it up. I don't do any work on my bows at all. I'm a meat cutter. I'm not a bow tech. So I and 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 I think there's a lot of people, and then that's when the discouraging thing sets in. You know, they get in the stand, they have that buck of a lifetime or something that they really want to shoot, and you know, they release that arrow, and because their bow's not tuned or because they didn't take the time to check things out, you know, they hit it 6 inches back, or they punch it in the shoulder and it hits that big bone, and they don't get any penetration.
Yeah,
And then
been there, done that.
I did it on a 40-inch deer 4 years ago. Um, I and it was I was so confident. This deer walks out. He's 22 yards. I ranged him. I wasn't even shaking. I mean, I was confident. I had that deer. For whatever reason, whenever I released, my bow arm came forward and I hit him right in that big bone in the shoulder. I got about 1.5 inches of penetration, and he survived. Obviously, you know, I didn't get any. There was no vitals hit at all.
Right.
But he never came back around during the daylight hours, and
Yeah.
I guess he's died of old age, or somebody else shot him with a rifle.
Yeah.
But you know, he's not at my house. I didn't get to put him on my plate or my wall. So you know, it happens. But
Yeah, I did that with mine. It was probably about a 15-yard shot, 70 pounds. Hit that bone. We spent
yeah,
3 hours walking through there, and the one deer got up, and run off, and no blood trail, no nothing. And it's the only thing I could have figured, because I go through the shoulder blade all the time. You know, I shoot
right,
the muzzies, and they don't care about bones. You know, they just
right,
blast right through them.
right. Yep, I shoot muzzies. I shoot muzzies and RAD, radical archery design broadheads. I shoot fixed blade broadheads. I have shot mechanical broadheads in the past. Um, just don't like them. You know, it's a preference. They're great broadheads. I'm not knocking mechanicals. I just prefer the penetration and everything else that I get off of a fixed blade broadhead. And and you know, I've shot some pretty heavy game. You know, I shot a ram that was over 400 pounds 3 or 4 years ago, and shot it with a radical archery design broadhead, fixed blade broadhead. And like I said, I shoot 52 pounds, and it went through that animal and buried up in a tree that was behind it. And I don't know. It's just a preference thing, I suppose.
Yeah, well, the slower bows, you can get the fixed blades to tune really well. And you know, when I tune my broadheads, I'm expecting to get the X ring with my broadheads.
Right.
Now, when I'm tuning them up, field tips will not hit in the same spot on my bow. And most of them don't. You know, your fixed blades, they're not going to fly like field tips, and I don't care, because if I'm shooting that bow, I know they're not going to hit where I'm aiming with a field tip, but they hit dead on when I'm shooting broadheads. I have another bow I
Right.
shoot field tips with, so you know, I don't I don't care if they don't hit. I care what they hit with the broadheads, and
Absolutely.
you know, and my first deer, I was 20 feet up in the tree, and the trail was 40 yards away, shooting a 52-pound bow. This was back when that was not very fast either, you know, back in
Right.
the 70s and 80s, I think, maybe early 80s or something. And I went almost completely through that deer with 2117 arrow and 145 grain tip. So yeah, you don't need a lot of weight, just to have a good shot.
Yes. And I'm huge on that. But I'm gonna take you on the road with me if that's all right. I'm gonna drive down the road and meet my wife for supper here in a little bit.
Yeah, don't make
Talking
her
to you
mad at you,
too.
right?
But no, and that's another thing. You know, we've got archery so complicated, and so many. You know, if you sit down and you watch a television show, and and you see everything that they're telling you you have to have in order to be a successful bow hunter. I don't know that I would have ever started bow hunting.
Yeah. Well, you can look at what Fredbear used: blue jeans, plaid shirt, and a recurve. Yeah, you don't need all the fancy camo. You just got to
Absolutely.
be stealthy. And I have all the camo, and I have the scent control suits, and I use the shampoos. Any advantage, I'm going to take it. If I can get an advantage, I'm going to use it.
For sure, for sure. Hey, I do the scent control thing. Actually, on it now, I that was on it. I always tell people I won't go without, but
You're
and there's so many things. There's just so many different things that are available.
yeah, you're breaking up real bad again.
Me,
I think you lost your signal.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, your video even froze.
Oh, did it? Okay. If you can hear me, I'm gonna back out of the driveway. It'll take a couple of seconds, and then I should be right back on.
Okay. Yeah, it's there's always interesting stories that you hear, but different things going on, and it's practice technique is the thing. I've seen people's post on some sites. It's like, hey, how's my shooting? And the answer would be, well, practice more. Well, if you practice wrong, you're gonna get better at being wrong. So you want to
Absolutely.
go through and do some good, decent practice. And if you're not feeling like it, don't shoot that day. Maybe next day you'll feel better and about shooting. And
That's huge to me. You have to practice right. I stay on my daughter all the time. She's going to college. She doesn't get to shoot all the time, but when she comes home, I have to make sure that she's going through her practice sessions right before I'll even
right,
let her go out. And she's pretty good on her own, so she takes care of most of that stuff. If she's not in a 3-inch group, she's not going to go hunt.
oh
And
yeah,
she'll blame herself, and she'll tell me I haven't got to practice any, so I'm not going to take a chance on going out and wounding an animal. And she's pretty mature in that way.
yeah. Well, you don't want to go out and not have the skills to make a good shot. Last thing you want to do is take a bad shot, and we've all done it.
Oh yeah,
If you've been hunting very long, you've made bad shots. Made the wrong decision and
sure.
took a shot you knew you shouldn't have, but you just kind of do it once. You don't want to do it again.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny for me too. We talked about concentration a little bit earlier, and it's funny because if a buck comes out that I want to shoot, the concentration levels are so in tune with everything, so I always make a better shot on a good buck than I do a doe. I'll have a doe walk out, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna shoot her, and I grab my bow and I get in a hurry, and I don't have that level of concentration, and
Oh,
and I have to force myself to refocus and concentrate and kind of build that shot up so that I know that I execute everything right, even when I'm shooting a doe. And again, it falls back to that muscle memory kind of thing, and that confidence.
right.
But
Yeah. Get that muscle memory so that you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're just doing it. And we do that in martial arts as well. You practice the technique until it's a reaction. You don't have to think through the whole process. And same thing with archery. You go through, like we talked about earlier, you have the process. I go through this process every time, and then I don't have to think about it. If I've got to deer out in front of me, I go through the same process and go to my anchor point and pull through, and that's the whole key is getting a process down and staying with it. But that comes with, time practicing. And
Yeah, absolutely. It's practice time, and I see people do it all the time, and I
oh, looks like we lost him here. He's driving, so it's not surprising. Yeah, he connect him back in. There you go. We lost you for a little bit. You're muted.
how about now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I got on the road. I have to go over a couple of hills where the reception is not so great. I should be golden from now on, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when you're driving it or riding in a car, it's one of those things that it can get tough because you never know what signal's like.
Yeah. Now, we usually know the dead spots, and I was telling my sister's driving me, so I told her, I said, you got to hurry. So, but yeah, that what I was saying is the people, and myself included at times in the past, that don't shoot throughout the entire year. They grab their bow a couple of weeks before deer season, and they go out and they fling 5 arrows a day, or even worse, they try to shoot 100 arrows a day, and
Oh,
they get
yeah.
tired, they get fatigued, and they think that they're doing themselves or the animals that they're in pursuit of justice, and it just doesn't do any good. One of the guys that I work with, he works on my bow, and he's told me before, it's better to shoot 1 arrow a day for 100 days than it is to shoot 100 arrows in one day. And
Oh,
that's an
yeah.
absolute truth right there.
Well, you take that one arrow when that deer comes by. How many shots do you get? One.
You get one unless you're lucky.
And I have gotten a couple off, but it's because I shot them with the first one and they turn around. One of the ways to stop and turn, sometimes they'll get a second one off. But
Right.
generally you get one shot, make your one shot count. If you're going to practice, don't have a lot of time, grab your bow, like you said. That one shot is what counts. You get one shot, and you're focused on, you got to hit that X. One shot. If you don't hit it, well, you got to wait till tomorrow to try and hit it again.
Right.
You don't want to do that, all the time, because you do need some practice in there to develop your technique and your skill and everything else. But that first shot has to count for everything. That's the money shot.
Yeah. And we were talking about that earlier. Sometimes whenever I do my blind bell sessions, I'll shoot that one shot, see where I'm at, and then I'll work through blind bell or work through hold the pin. That's what I always call it. I'm trying to hold the pin in that smaller area.
Yeah.
But it is that one shot, because that's what you get. Somebody said one time, and I've never actually timed it, but from the time that you see a deer till the time that you release that arrow, it's a matter of seconds. And to practice that is just as important, I think. But you also have to work on that muscle memory, because if you don't have muscle memory, I'm telling you, it's gonna be it's gonna be a recipe for not getting to cook your venison.
Yeah. Well, and the kind of difference between the amateur and the professional, the amateur practices until they can get it right. The professional practices until they can't get it wrong.
Right.
So
Right.
they've done it so much that it's just ingrained into them, and do the same thing in all sports are the same way. The more you do it, the better you get. It's like the first time you shot a bow, how good were you as opposed to now,
Right, for sure. And I don't know, trying to get people to understand that and to work through everything is sometimes it's pretty difficult. Sometimes it's hard to do.
Yeah.
until they go out and they gut shoot that deer, and they have an 8-mile track job to try to get a follow-up shot on a deer that they wounded. You
Yeah.
know, then maybe they'll change their mindset a little bit, get their bow out a little bit earlier than 2 weeks before season starts.
Yeah, we used to get a lot of that, a couple weeks before everybody's bringing their bow into the shop, and they need arrows, they need new strings, they need all kinds of stuff, and last minute. And I was talking to one guy, and he says, yeah, their shop rates increase the closer you get to hunting season.
Yeah,
they might charge, like say $20 an hour during the summer. It gets, a month before it might be 30, a couple weeks before it might be 40, the week before it might be 50 or $60 an hour. It's like, don't wait. And it's like, when I thought about it, it's like, that makes sense. If they understand that the closer you wait to hunting season, it's going to cost you more. And you know
right.
what? I might be too busy to get to it today.
Yeah.
Because if I have bows ahead of you, I'm working on them first. I'm not going to stop and take yours.
Right. I'm not stopping what I'm doing just for you. So
right.
Yeah, for sure. And I see it here. I could walk into the bow shop that I frequent here right now, and they will probably be out of new bows. There probably won't be one left on the shelf. We're 2 weeks out from deer season. And I always wonder, and there's guys out there, you said you shoot old bows. I shoot 10-year-old, 20-year-old bows, but there's guys out there who change every year. But what is the actual percentage of that? And how many people are actually walking in, buying their first bow ever 2 weeks before deer season starts, then going out and thinking that they should be successful?
Right.
And what kind of taste does that give them for bow hunting when they go out and they're not successful?
That's why I give away shooting instruction with every bow I sold. That way I knew they could shoot, at least before they got out of the store. They're going to get, half hour, whatever it takes to get them going. And that way I know that at least they have the skills that they can learn. And at least they're within the ball field. And, I've taken people with 6-inch groups and, spent less than an hour, and now they got, 2-3-inch groups or 1-inch groups. And that's what you do. You teach them to shoot better than you can. That's my whole goal is my students, I want them to be able to outshoot me. Now, as older I get, the harder it is for me to see. Yeah, it gets easier and easier to do, but I don't take those 100-yard shots. I can't see the targets.
Right. So do you primarily shoot compound, or do you shoot recurve or any traditional bows?
Mostly compound. When I go out bow fishing, I use my recurve. It's for me, it's a different mental aspect. A recurve, I see the target, I look at the target, I draw back, get the anchor point, and follow through. A compound, I look for the pins, the anchor point. It takes me too long. I can't shoot quickly with a compound bow because it's a different weapon, and my mind is different. Right. The way I pick it up. Just like if I pick up a handgun or a rifle or a crossbow, or throwing a ball, it's all different sports. You do them differently, but that's just me. Some people can do it. I started out in the 60s shooting recurve, instinctively shooting recurve, and you know what? If I wanted to, I could probably learn, but I don't want to.
I am actually thinking about, I've always shot compound bows, even when I go bow fishing, they're all compound bows, but what you're saying makes sense because I'm a horrible bow fisherman, but it's the most fun that I ever have. I never hit any fish, but it's a blast trying to. But that makes a whole lot of sense because it changes your mindset from a compound bow where I take the time to aim. With traditional archery, you don't necessarily have that. You don't get to aim, and maybe it would in tune me more with some of my instinctive shooting.
Right. You don't have time to aim when you're shooting at a fish that's there and gone. Where
right.
If you're shooting target, there's multiple methods of shooting targets. You can shoot, instinctively you can gap shoot, you can string walk. And, the first time I string walker, it's like, what? I'm thinking Skinwalker Ranch, I'm thinking, what's a skinwalker? What's a string walker?
Right.
I'm thinking something else. And so finally, I actually interviewed a guy that does it, and it's like, he explained it a little bit better. And I'd seen a guy doing it, and it makes a lot of sense. But now you're judging how far down on the string, how far up, if you're up a certain distance, you're down, and then as you move your hand up, it brings it up. And
Right.
and some use the tip, and there's all kinds of different methods in it. And I figure if I'm going to reference off the tip of the arrow, which is not going to be a consistent spot, I'm just going to put sights on it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But now, so if you were to rank your fun scale, so to speak, between bow fishing or bow hunting, which one would you pick?
Oh, I think I'd probably take bow hunting.
Really?
Just, I do it much more, and I don't get out bow fishing that often, but it is a lot of fun doing it. Get the recurve out and fling at the fish. I remember one time I was going out, I was shooting at the carp, missing every one of them. A gar comes swimming by, which is about 1-inch diameter, and I hit it. Like, I'm missing these big fish, and I hit this little bitty one.
Right, little bit skinny fish swimming across the water. Yeah, hey, I'm right there with you. I've shot the big shad, and I shoot 2 or 3 of them in a row, and then a 20-pound buff will come across, and I shoot a foot over his back, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, you never know. It's just I don't do bow fishing enough to get any better at it, because I just don't. That I've been out a few times, but
Right. The main reason I go is it's fun. There's no pressure. It's you get out there and you get to cut up with a bunch of guys. You don't have to be quiet, be still, and the atmosphere is usually pretty good. And
yeah,
I don't know. I have so much fun when I go bow fishing, and it gets me outside better than sitting on the couch watching TV. You can only watch so much Matlock.
Watch my luck. Well, I don't know if you guys probably don't have the Asian carp down there. We've got them up here where you're going by and they start jumping in your boat and everything else, and that would be kind of fun to shoot. I've seen guys go out with shotguns and like, okay, pull, just shooting them.
We actually had a buddy of mine. We actually had a trip booked to go Asian carp bow fishing. Now I want to say it was probably 3 years ago, and then it was right around COVID. So when COVID hit, we had to cancel.
Yeah, that kind of
but
messed up a lot of people's plans.
I want to do.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of fun too.
I know. I know so many people that had to cancel trips to Africa and New Zealand because of COVID. And it's coming back now. We're starting to get things back leveled out, and I think we got another round of COVID that's supposed to be coming around. I hope not, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, guess what's coming up? Elections.
Yes. Yeah. So
we're gonna get political. Yeah, that mail-in ballots so they can stuff them.
Hopefully it doesn't come to that again, but we'll just kind of have to see, try
yeah. I think most people would just say, you know what? Too bad. I'm not going to comply with it right now.
I honestly, I hope so. I hope that's the way the world goes. It's so hard to tell. You talk to different people, and some of them are going to mask up no matter what. And there's other ones that are dead set against it. And then you got those like me. If I don't wear a mask when I go to work, I don't work and I don't make any money. So you're kind of in a catch-22. What do you do?
Right.
And I don't know. Cutting up deer, I don't have to wear a mask. So hopefully I can get to that point before sooner than later.
Yeah. Well, I've retired, so I'm working now. So if they do that, it's like, okay, I'm only
Right,
working because I want to. I don't have to work. So bye.
right.
When that goes away, I'll come back.
Well, Roy, I'll tell you what, we're fixing to pull into a restaurant, and I guess I'm gonna go eat a birthday ribeye.
Oh, that sounds like fun. And down there in Texas, you guys know how to do ribeyes, don't you?
Oh, that's our go-to. That is our go-to. If if I'm gonna eat a steak, it's gonna be a ribeye. If I'm gonna eat some deer meat, it's gonna be fried.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's been great talking with you.
I had a blast, man. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah. What do you have for parting thoughts before we get out of here?
You know, one of the things, and I think you can tell I'm pretty passionate about getting people out in the woods and keeping people out in the woods. And how do we do that? And I hate to say it. We kind of talked a little bit about the world. In our world now, we don't have as many father figures in the homes, and one of the things that I think that is instrumental for us to do is to get more and more women involved in the outdoors and in the shooting and into the hunting aspect of everything, because they're the ones that are raising up the kids now. And
Yeah.
I think the more women that we have in the outdoors, the better off we're going to be in the future. And even if it's up to us as some of the men in the industry to get out and spend time with those kids, spend as much time with them as you can, and get them out there, even if it's with a BB gun chasing sparrows around, or trying to shoot a rabbit with a pellet gun, or a bow, or whatever it is. Let's do everything that we can to keep kids in the outdoors and get them off the games and out of the living rooms and off the couches, and and really start promoting it to kids again, like it was to us when we were growing
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. That's the thing. You just got to get out there. And I know Nebraska has what they call the Women in the Outdoors. It's a whole weekend, just for women, teaching them archery, shooting guns, shooting shotguns, kayaking. I don't know what all they do. I go in and help them out on the archery part of it, but that's just all ladies out there learning it and stuff, being outside. And we, in the archery part, we've had, ladies there from, 16, 17 to over 70, shooting bows
Right,
there. So, all ages and all skills. And, um, they teach an open stance, because if you do a close lens like I teach and you do it wrong, you will hit your arm.
right,
That's the only disadvantage. The way I teach it is, if you hit your arm, you're doing it wrong. So you're going to learn quick. So you don't do that with beginners that just there for, you have them for what, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And then,
right,
so you don't have time to get real detailed with them.
right,
Once in a while, somebody have their own equipment, and then we'll work a little bit more with them. But
right,
there's always 2 or 3 of us there. So, and it's not normally a very big crowd, but that's fun. And
well, and being outside, and more than likely everyone that's watching this knows this is fun. It's fun to get out there, and it's fun to match wits with animals, and it's fun to hone your skills in so that you can hit that X every time. And there's not enough of the youth that's coming up that ever gets the chance to experience it, for whatever reason, whatever's happening in the world. It's just, I don't know. It's sad, and I think it's up to us, the older generation especially, to get people to involve kids in the outdoors.
yeah, it is. And it gets us out there as well.
Right, for
Yeah.
sure. The more time I spend out there, the happier I am. Matter my wife is, but the happier I am. So
Yeah, yeah, don't let her watch this then, right?
Yeah, she'll probably skip this one.
Well, it's been great talking with you, and I'm sure we'll talk later. And for those that are watching this or listen to it, remember you can catch it on Spotify and other podcast places, and also on Audible. You can listen to it free on Audible, as well
Okay.
as on my YouTube channel. You can go out to archtalk101.com and you have access to the videos there. And like right now, we're recording live in Arch Talk 101 Facebook group, so you can always join there and watch all the episodes.
Okay. That's
And get other knowledge in there. And it's a great group for helping people out. And you don't have to worry about anybody trying to sell anything to you, because we don't allow it in the group. It's all just helping you out. And that's real for it, just to help you out. If you have a question, we'll answer it, or somebody in the group will answer it. And there's people in there with all kinds of experiences, and it's a lot of fun.
well, that sounds great, man. That's what it's all about, not necessarily about trying to make a bunch of money, but sharing our experiences and helping people along the way, and that's big to me. That's a big deal to me. And I appreciate everything that you're doing to help promote our sport.
And that's the fun part. I enjoy doing this. I wouldn't do it otherwise. It's fun. I get to talk archery.
Hey,
Sometimes
always
talk
a good
archery
day,
instead of
right?
shooting. Yeah, it's always a good day.
Always a good day.
Yeah, sometimes talk about archery and I'll get guns to go shoot. I didn't get my bow out and go do some shooting.
Right? If I wasn't going for birthday dinner tonight, I'd already have my bow set up.
Well, after you get back from your birthday, go shoot.
Right? We'll see how much light there is.
Yeah, not quite as much fun shooting in the dark, is it?
Well, hey, I didn't even talk about pig hunting any. I love to pig hunt, and I love to do it at night. I use sniper hog lights. I have one set up on my bow all the time. Screws in where your stabilizer screws in, and it's a blast. And getting out there, it's not quite so hot. We're still 90-degree days, 90+ degrees days, and here in Texas, and you get out there and it's dropping down into the 70s at night. It's a whole lot more comfortable than sitting out there in the heat. And you get a sounder of pigs that comes in. Sometimes you get off 2 or 3 shots, it depending on how goofy they are, but that's just a blast too.
Yeah. Well, better let you go so you can get in and have some dinner, and I'm going to go so I can have some of my dinner, and we'll talk to you some other time then.
Well, that sounds great, man. Anytime you want to reach out to me, if you ever come to Texas, give me a shout. We'll go get on some critters.
Yeah. What part of Texas are you in?
I'm right in Central Texas.
Oh, okay.
Right in, live in a little town called Lampasas.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one. A lot of little towns.
There's 10 of us that live there, I think.
Well, if I come down there, I'll connect with you, and we can go shoot some bows.
Man, that'll work for me, man. I'll tell you, we can get on pigs anytime.
Yeah, they're kind of a nuisance sometimes, aren't they?
Oh, they're so bad around here. You don't even have to plow to put in food plots.
Oh, yeah.
They just keep the ground all tore up. It's rooted up. They're bad. They're bad.
Well, that's good for us that want to go shoot them, but bad for the farmers and ranchers.
Right. They want us to come shoot them. So we do need to control them a little bit better, but the government steps in the way again.
Yeah, they'll do that.
Right. Well, all right, sir. Well, I'm gonna sneak in here and grab me something to eat, and like I said, give me a shout anytime. I'd love to talk to you again.
All right, will do.
All right.
All right. Nice talking to you.
Have a great evening.
Yeah, you too. My name is Rory Canterbury. I'm host today on Arch Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one.